Hi, Annette Lang here. Welcome to my podcast, The History of Personal Training, or at least my experience in it. This podcast will be a combination of my stories. Full disclosure, I might not remember things exactly the way that you did. Now, my stories of 30 plus years in the fitness industry and then specifically personal training. I was at the beginning of a lot of events, the firsts, so to speak, and so I hope you enjoy those stories. In addition, I'll be interviewing lots of different people whom I've met through the years, and I think that will help piece together a wonderful timeline of the development of this profession that we now call personal training. Enjoy! I am so happy to have connected with Rocco Greco. When I got hired as a personal trainer at Equinox, he hired me. He was the personal training manager at the time. He has wonderful insights and great stories. Enjoy.
Okay.
All right, here we go. So Rocco Greco, thank you so much for doing this interview with me. And I'll just butt in and interrupt, but why don't you start by telling everybody how you got into fitness and Equinox and tell us a couple of stories.
Okay. So thanks for having me, and thanks for letting me do this. So I got started in fitness when I was at 20 years old. I was in the Marines, and a good friend of mine, Tom Lagaki, was a powerlifter, bodybuilder, and he drugged me to the gym one day, and my silly question after a day of being there was, well, what happens if you quit? Don't you gain all your weight back? And I probably weighed about 140 pounds soaking wet back then. And, he goes, you never quit. So subsequently, that was, I'm 59 now, going on 60. So I never quit. I just always worked out and ran and, took care of myself, ate right for the most part. But during my time in the service, I used to help certain people out, certain Marines that couldn't do the run or do enough pull-ups, push-ups, sit-ups. They just didn't acclimate their bodies to exercise. So through reading, and back then it was the big resource was Muscle and Fitness magazine,
right.
And Flex, and that's where you got all your information from. Nobody dreamed of certifications, or if they were existent, nobody really paid attention to them.
Right. And Rocco, where were you living now?
California. I was in California. And, in the Marines, overseas a lot, Okinawa, Japan, Korea. So it was always, every gym, every base had a gym on it. And it was, that was the place to go if you were going to get in shape. So, just a side story, back when I was probably 28 years old, I met a guy by the name of Sam Griffiths. And he was 65 years old, and he was running around the gym at Camp Del Mar in California and Camp Pendleton. And he was telling everybody what to do and, how to do it. And I was thinking to myself, old man, if you approach me, we're going to work out, and I'm going to feed you your dinner. And, sure enough, he came by the next day, and he said, hey, Rocco, you and I should work out sometime. And I was like, you know it. How about tomorrow? So I said, I'll be here at 5 o'clock. And he goes, I'll be here. And sure enough, he was there. And this guy trained in a tank top, shorts, a weight belt, and flip-flops.
Wow.
So after 15 minutes of us working out together, I went to the back of the gym and puked my brains out because I later found out that he was a former two-time Mr. America back in the 1950s. And we subsequently became very good friends and stayed in touch over the years. He helped me train for drill instructor school. We had many great times and workouts together.
That's terrific.
And I went to Japan, and I had sent him a letter, and I said, I'm going to Iwakuni. And he goes, oh my God, back in 1960 so-and-so, I set that gym up. And in all of his gyms, he had a poster of a wall painting of Jim Grimmick. And sure enough, I go to this gym, and there's Jim Grimmick, and whatever his name was, and I took a picture of it and sent it to him, and he was like, "Oh my God, I put that there in 1960 something." And then probably a week later, I was at the chow hall, getting my lunch or dinner, and one of the mama-sans came up to me, and she goes, "Oh, you remind me of a Marine that used to come here many years ago." So she brought in the base paper from 1962, and sure enough, it was my buddy that was featured in this base paper. So I made a copy of that and sent it to him, and it was just one of those things of life all coming together.
Right. That's a great story.
So when I got out of the service in 1990. Yeah, 1990.
Okay.
I screwed around in California for a while. Really didn't know what I was doing. I got involved with Quicksilver Clothing for a while. I trained at a Gold's Gym in Fountain Valley, and I trained with Serge Nubret, who he was always an all-time bodybuilder, but there he was in the flesh, and we had a couple of great workouts together as time went on. And then I got the bug one day to move back to New York City that I never said I would move back to, and I showed up. I was in touch with my family back then, and my sister helped me get a job with Molly Fox.
Okay.
And I worked for Molly Fox at the front desk.
Rocco, she had a dance studio, right?
Yeah, on West 20th Street between Broadway and Broadway and Fifth Avenue, or between 5th and 6th, I forget. Yeah, I think it was right by the church, that one church that's become a nightclub, restaurant, whatever it is now.
Yeah, the Limelight.
Limelight, the Limelight. So there was 3 people always working the desk, and you had to aspire to be the middle person, because the people on your left and your right were calling out names, and you had to pull a member's card out and check it for what class they were taking. And let's see, it was names that I remember: John Giswold,
Yeah.
Payne, Kathy Thompson, Michael Schwartz. I mean,
Wow.
so many people. I was trying to remember the names when we first got back in touch, and I was like, kind of angry at myself that I couldn't remember everybody's name. Jackie Pretey.
What about Jeff Martin?
Jeff Martin had his own studio around the corner from Equinox.
Okay.
76 and Broadway. But Molly was her own icon for that area. That she was her own anchor, and so I worked the front desk for a while. It was easy to make money because nobody wanted to work. Everybody was an actor or a model.
Right.
So I was always taking somebody's shifts, and there was 3 studios and a small bathroom. People would just get changed wherever or showed up dressed. It really didn't matter. It was just old school, dusty, dirty, and cool. And she had a Pace studio. I don't know if you guys remember that Pace.
I
do. It was all hydraulic equipment.
Right.
And, somebody, you get on each piece of equipment for like 30 or 45 seconds. Somebody would blow a whistle. And I forget the guy's name. He was a big African-American, just the nicest guy in the world. His name is going to come to me as we're talking.
Uh-huh.
I just know it. But anyway, she came to me one day and said they were going to make a little one-on-one studio out of it. And she bought all this equipment. It was a cable crossover, a leg press, just probably like 10 pieces of equipment, some free weights. And when she told me that, somebody said, "You're a personal trainer. You should tell everybody you're a personal trainer." and sure enough, within the first few days there, I was just telling people I'm a personal trainer. Everybody's like, "Hey, let me train with you."
Wow.
So I get everybody in this little room, and I paid Molly a fee. And I did all my one-on-one training there. And then some people wanted to train at home in their apartments, and I would do the New York City thing and go uptown, downtown, here, there, and everywhere. And the disheartening fact about that is you'd show up at somebody's house after spending 30 minutes on the subway, and they'd say, "I don't feel like training today."
Right.
So if they didn't pay you in advance, you were kind of like out the money. But around that time, it was around like September, October, November. Yeah, it was around October, November '91. Somebody had called me up. There was no email back then. Everybody had a beeper or a voicemail number that people would call you at. And somebody had left me a message or said Equinox was opening, this gym on the Upper West Side. I should go check it out. It's supposed to be really cool. And I went up. I did go up there, and I met the general manager. Her name was Julie. I don't remember her last name, but she was Equinox had one manager, and Julie was that manager.
Uh-huh.
She was, certified ACSM, NASM, CSCS. She was an educator from way back. I mean, she had gone to my recollection recalls, I think she went to University of Pennsylvania, one of those universities there, and she was brilliant. She was really smart. But she gave me an interview and she said, "You're not certified. You got your CPR, but come up tomorrow and we'll work out, and I'm going to ask you a whole bunch of questions, and I'm going to see if you're going to kill somebody or not." So sure enough, I showed up and I was kind of nervous, but I said, I'm just going to be myself and take it through a great workout. And she asked me tons of questions about, if someone had an injury, if someone, said this or that,
Right.
What I would do. And just instinctively and through the years of training, I gave her all the right answers. And, at the end of the workout, she goes, "That was pretty good." And, the cat just showed back up.
Oh, great.
And Eddie. She said, "We're going to hire you and we're going to pay you $10 an hour. And here's the way it works." And there was a couple of other trainers. Scott Gordon Summers was one of them.
Yeah.
And there was another guy. I think his name was Billy. And he was like the top trainer. He had a big file cabinet filled with everything in the world about personal training. And everybody he trained since Equinox had barely opened its doors.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, this is pretty impressive. But, the name of the game then was to, you'd sign people up. And one of our famous membership advisors was Merlan Taylor.
Oh my gosh!
Who, her and I had a great partnership of closing membership sales and personal training. But somebody would sign up for the gym, and you'd schedule them for a micro fit evaluation.
Right.
And we were barely trained on that. Scott Gordon Summers trained me how to do it. And he goes, yeah, it's easy as pie. And it was. It was basically a way to make someone aware of their physiological goings on when they were exercising on the bike. There was a strength test. There was a stretch and reach test, as I remember.
Right.
Caliper test, 6-point. And then you would, make your pitch to that person, offer them a free workout, an orientation, show them how to use the gym, and hopefully you'd get to sell them personal training.
Right.
And back then it was new, and everybody wanted a personal trainer. It was the in vogue, the vogue thing to have.
Right.
You lived on the Upper West Side. You were training at the coolest gym in the world.
But Rocco, were you an employee or was it independent contractor?
It was independent contractor back then. It's funny you say that because I was going to get to that.
Oh, okay.
But everybody wanted a trainer, and the way you got paid is if you were doing an orientation or a microfit, you got $10 an hour. If you just had a floor shift where you walked around to help people, it was $10 an hour, and you'd pick up the weights to make sure the gym was policed, and the gym always had to look camera ready, as everybody said back then.
Wow.
And you talk to people and help them out and show them different ways to exercise, and eventually somebody would come up to you and say, "Hey, I've been watching you train, and I want to buy a package with you." And what would happen is you could buy 1 session, 5 sessions, or 10 sessions, and then you would get, I think it was $25 per session.
Okay.
Everybody was an I-9. And I don't know, it was probably the middle of 92-ish. Chris Imbo.
Yeah.
I hope everybody remembers him. He became the personal training director for Equinox, and he had also created a signature program called Peak 10.
Right.
And everybody was kind of envious and jealous of this Peak 10, but he got the first big article in GQ magazine, and it kind of put Equinox on the map back then, because what happened is everybody flocked into this, I think it was like less than 15,000 square feet of gym.
Wow.
I have a picture somewhere of, it looked like a nightclub scene one night at 7 o'clock. The gym was packed to the rafters, and there was probably about 15 people working out. Wow. Everybody else was just there socializing and rubbing elbows and hobnobbing because they wanted to be seen at Equinox.
Rocco, what was Peak 10 again? Can you just explain what that program was?
Peak 10 was it was a 10-week program, and it was it was basically an all-inclusive, synergistic way to eat properly, exercise, stay on a program where periodization was built in. And at the end of 10 weeks, you would have this, if you stuck to it, you would have a miraculous body transformation.
And wasn't it like 5 days a week training, I think?
It was 5 days a week, and sometimes it was twice a day, I believe. There was there was running in the park. There was They incorporated massage into it, I believe, back then. I have the article somewhere. I saved it because I've always gone back to that and said that was like one of the most brilliant things that anybody ever came up with. But just to pick up where I left off, so P10 put Equinox on the map, and then subsequently Chris came up with a program of different levels of trainers, and I forgot. The name has changed so many times since, but it was your basic trainer, your intermediate, and your advanced to be black and white about it. And then there was different packages that went with it. Right. And the levels of trainer became what your skill set was, how much certification you had. I think for the most part, it was always going to be what somebody was going to pay. Right. If you were black level, I think it went to that at one point. But it became a program that Chris kind of got modeled at that time of like how many sessions can you do in a day. So when Chris was a trainer, I remember he was doing 6 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon, and then he'd leave and go to school, or he'd go pursue his other interests. And I kind of modeled myself after that, where I said, okay, I'm going to work Monday through Thursday, and I'm going to work from 8 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon. After getting popular, Monday through Thursday became 6 in the morning until 8 at night, and then Friday filled up, Saturday filled up, and then what the hell, I'm going to work on Sunday too. Wow. So. And it was all, there was little contests in the gym amongst the trainers. There was probably like a half-hour break every day. Everybody would sit outside in the front of the gym and drink a coffee. And there was so many people back then. I was trying to remember everybody's name. But we'd all sit outside and we'd lament and say, this job sucks. And, but we'd all sit there and drink our coffee and complain about the world for 30 minutes and then go back in and deliver great service to everybody and great training. Right. And that's what it became, how many sessions you could do a day and how many you could do a week and who was going to do the most and who got the popular client, who was training James Taylor, who was training Carly Simon, Sharon Stone, Billy Baldwin. There was a whole, host of people coming and going in there, and, who was the most prestigious trainer to get the most popular, celebrity at the time. Right. But for me, I continued in that vein for I don't know, a couple of years, and then they made me drink the Kool-Aid. I remember Chris, P10 was really taking off of him, and the PT side of the business, as Equinox saw it, was kind of being neglected, and there was a member, Charlie Hooker, who said, you would be great at this job, and I'm gonna, you should take the job, and I turned it down a few times. And everybody thought I was playing hardball, but I was getting advice from another source, one of my clients, who said, you're going to take on a lot of responsibility and all your free time, is going to just go away. And he was 100% correct, because I did reach that level as a trainer where I worked Monday through Thursday in the summers. I would work 6 in the morning until 8 at night, 9 at night. I'd pack everybody in and then take Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off. Right. Well, I took the job as a training manager, director, whatever it was at the time, and I quickly found out I was working 7 days a week. Bob Esqueri was in the mix at the time. Right. There was a marketing person, I forget her name. He's gonna hate me for that, but it'll come to me. My old age, it'll come to me. We used to sit around for like hours at a time after the gym closed. And figure out what type of programs we were going to make and how we were going to educate everybody, and how we there was just so many things, and it was so fresh at the time because we'd have these meetings and everybody would get together, and the meetings were basically who was going to outdo the other person with their knowledge and who had the bigger ego and who was smarter. Johnny Bowden sat at the table, Dose Condon. Yep. So you were there, and everybody would basically beleaguer everyone else at the of what program was going to be poo-pooed and what was going to be great, but that was what it was all about back then. And Johnny Bowden said it the best, and what he said was he goes, 20 to 30 years from now, all of us that are sitting in this room now are all going to like come together in some form or fashion because everybody's going to evolve. Everybody's going to go to a different level. And what we're doing right now, and I thought he was crazy for saying this, but I always remembered it because it was so true, and it is true. Because everybody came together, or is coming back together, because everybody's gone off in a different direction and done different things in the industry.
Yes.
And become those states people. You know, you yourself as an educator. You look at Dose, who's like a VP of franchising now. You look at, I don't know, give me a name, Bob Esqueri.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look at Johnny Bowden. Look at Paul Frediani.
Yep.
Look at, there's like hundreds of people. Michael Riley, Michael Lucas.
Right. Michael Yusoff, yeah.
Yeah, Chiba, Michael Yusoff.
Right.
Who else? There was Stu Middleman, who came up with the cutting edge idea of having that physiology lab on the second floor.
Right.
That everybody said, "Oh, that's a waste of time. It's stupid." But it created groundwork. It allowed the industry to move. Because look where it is now.
Yeah.
When kettlebells first came out, everybody was like, "Oh, how stupid is that?" Now you get the best workout in the world. You incorporate kettlebells.
Right.
Eat properly. Johnny Bowden used to, belittle me for my salami sandwiches. but I got to tell you, you look at what he's created now, and the workouts that Paul Frediani used to do in the stairway at Equinox, training people how to box. And now he's written books, and he's, from what I gather, he's a pod gym owner right now.
Yes, he is, of Elysium, with Tony Hearns.
Yeah, with Tony Hearns, and
Yeah. Well, I just want to say one thing.
Right?
I remember when I walked in there because I was working at the when Crunch was a little tiny dance studio in the West Village. I was managing that place, and Courtney Barrel used to walk in there and work out because I guess she lived around there. And she was like, "Oh, you've been in fitness forever. You always say you loved helping people back in Florida. Why don't you come to Equinox and do personal training?" I was like, "There's no way that can work out." So I walk in, and I remember you had too many other things to remember, but you hired me. It was $7 an hour to work the floor.
How much?
7.
7?
And then 10 was the initial personal training rate for the level 1. But the day you hired me, you also hired Adam Pascal. He's now a famous Broadway star.
Right.
But he was a trainer, and he had like a heavy metal rock band or something, and then he wound up trying out for Rent. I know, so it's so funny. And back then, so many people, like you said, they were actors, so they wanted to be personal trainers on the side, just as a side job.
Yeah,
but
you remember Cisco?
Yes,
Cisco used to sell. He was I guess a corporate model for Fabergé or one of those, and he was always playing around with his perfume and everything like that. He was always cracking me up. There was another guy, I think his name was Ray. He was a writer. He did comedy writing. He wound up moving out to Hollywood. I forget his last name, but he was married to one of the trainers. She had long frizzy hair. She was very beautiful. There was Suzanne Green.
Yeah.
I think that was her last name.
Yeah. And Ramona.
She had black hair.
Yep.
There was Julie Fisher.
Yes.
There was Alicia Evans, Amy Hoff.
Yes.
Lisa Goldberg.
Yep.
Courtney. God, there were so many people. But as you cull through your memory, and you think of all of these people that that stayed in the industry and made a difference and continue to make a difference, and then you look at those that they went on and found their happiness in whatever they were doing, and they got there. For me, I stayed with Equinox. I became a general training director, and then general manager, and then director of operations, and then it was time to it was just one of those things. It's time to move on. When you've had enough, and I went to work for the Ericos when they opened the hotel.
But wait, now what year are you talking when you left Equinox?
Yeah, I left Equinox in 2002.
Okay.
I left in 2002. It was the company had been sold in 2000, I believe it was.
Okay.
And then it was it was just one of those things where the timing is right. you get, and I always enjoyed working for the Ericos. And Danny had called me and he said, we're going to, we're going to go in business with Steve Hansen, and he's going to do the nightclub and the restaurant, and we're going to do the hotel and the service. And I was like, well, I don't know anything about hotels. And he goes, well, there's 5,000 things to be done or 10,000 things to be done. You pick 5,000 of them and get it done. So I worked for the James Hotel. Danny wanted to buy in Rich Beretta's gym on 26th Street.
Yeah.
And then the whole thing, just James Hotel, that gym, everything got sold off. I went to work for Mark Tasher for a couple of years. We opened some training studios or programs in health tracks, and then I promised myself I was going to take a year off. And after that job, I said I'm taking a year off. And then I got interviewed by Gold's Gym. I got contacted by a corporate recruiter, and next thing you know, I was in Dallas, and the next thing you know, I was moving to San Antonio. And San Antonio Gold's Gym, that was a good experience as well.
What did you do there for them?
So I was a senior divisional vice president. When I first started, I oversaw the whole state of Texas, which was San Antonio, Brownsville, Corpus Christi, Austin, and Dallas. And then we did an acquisition in San Antonio, and it was probably prudent for me to, to just give up, everything else I had in the state of Texas, which I did gladfully. Then there was a time when the acquisition was going to go through, and they said, we'll give you the Midwest division. And there was like 11 gyms there, and I had the Midwest division for about a week or two, and then they said the acquisition's on, and we did this big acquisition in San Antonio. So I just stuck with San Antonio, Brownsville, and Corpus Christi, and we took that market. And when I left, it was at 30 gyms. I left, but that was another. It was a good 6-year position, but it was time to I needed to spend time with my family. I got 2 little ones now, if anybody could believe that. But and I got married on top of it, of course. But spending time with my family and 2 kids, became more important to me to watch my son, grow up. When we were in Texas, I used to take him to the gym with me all the time. I got some pictures of him grabbing kettlebells and body bars and grabbing a battling rope, and he's like, "Teach me, Daddy, teach me." So he's on the right path, as well as my daughter. Every morning they say, what do you give us for lunch? We want to get big and strong.
Oh, that's great.
So they're big healthy eaters, and they eat a lot. They're eating me out of house and home to help me. But as far as the industry goes, everything is changing. Gradually. You can tell the insurance companies and the lawyers are moving in and finding different ways to sue big companies, and with class action lawsuits and saying that people aren't paid fairly. And
I saw a couple of things that you posted.
Did you see the one I sent this morning?
No.
FLSA is going to change. They're going to change the requirements, and it's going to put a lot of people, that their base salary is going to have to get higher. So that's going to be pretty interesting. There was one that Gold's Gym just lost this couple of weeks ago, where a trainer, said he wasn't getting paid his full commission, and
right.
I think the school that everybody comes from is, you work, you get a piece of what what the package is, and I guess he's looking for more, and he had a good lawyer, and and you think about that, and you say to yourself, well, how is that going to change the industry now? Is it going to change other companies? What's going to happen with some of the other big box gyms,
right.
that have personal trainers in them? Are these trainers, look, it's public knowledge. Are these trainers going to read that, and what's that going to do?
Right.
Because the whole industry, as far as I see it now, it's become more of like, how much money are we going to make? How much, how can we squeeze somebody for another dollar? And the purity of it, of actually getting someone in shape, like sitting someone down and taking them to the gym to a training session and making a lifestyle change has changed.
Right.
Now it's like you got to get this Fitbit gadget, and you got to wear a heart rate monitor, and you got to go. I train at the gym, and I've become that older person now, where I work out with somebody that's younger and I make them throw up. But that's not my goal. But I watch a lot of people now that, they're in the middle of working out and they're setting up their camera so they can take pictures of themselves, or in between sets they're like playing around on text messages, and they're disconnecting their body from what they're truly at the gym for. Right. And I think that the gyms are equally as responsible, because they're putting these television sets in, and they have all these different messages that kind of like get you engaged in the television screen, rather than get on the gym floor, get with a good trainer, get with somebody that's experienced, let them take you through a workout, let them help you change your lifestyle, what you're eating and how you're exercising and what you're what's going in your stomach every day, and get with the exercise program. So, I mean, part of me leaving Gold's Gym too was that reason in itself. It was time to take a little career break and say, take a little career break and say, what am I going to do if I'm going to stay in this industry? What am I going to do to make a difference? And there's a big part of me right now that sits up at night, and makes a business plan for a storefront gym. A couple of 1,000 square feet, 3,000 square feet. You pay your dues at the door, and you come in, and it's old school. If you need to get your cardio in, you get on the road and you run, or you get on your bike and you do something outdoors rather than get on a piece of equipment. The equipment is good, it meets certain needs, but get out and run and feel the air, and get your body in shape, and feel what it's like to get on the road with your bike rather than on a stationary bike. Right. And then come into the gym and pump iron, and that's what it's all, in my opinion, that's what it's all about.
Well, it's interesting how you mentioned like the electronics and the technology to supposedly put you in better tune with yourself. But like what you're talking about right now, that's how you really get better in tune with yourself, is to go for a run and breathe and think. And
I think the best gauge has always been the mirror. And I used to tell my clients that, you go home, lock yourself in your bedroom, take your clothes off, and stand in front of the mirror and look at your body and look at what you want to change. And think about that every day. And your mind will help you steer your body in the right direction. You got, of course, need to put forth the effort. You can't go out and eat hot dogs and pizza every day, right. But you need to, your body will start making changes. And it takes time. I know we're in a society now of instant gratification, but if you put your mind to it, I trained with somebody the other day. They go, "Oh my God, you're in great shape. You're killing me, and this is wonderful. I've never had a workout like this." And he said, "How long have you been training?" And I stopped and I said, 39 years this year. It'll be 39 years in August. And I said, and he was like, "Oh my God, that's incredible." And I said, "Well, you could do the same thing too." By the way, the guy was only like 25, 26 years old. I said, "You could do the same thing too. You just never quit." And it's a lifestyle. It's what you're going to eat every day, and how you're going to take care of your body. Right. Because a lot of people, and you know this, and everybody else that's going to listen to this probably knows it, because we're the old school people. It's not what's evident on the outside; it's what's going on the inside. How's your liver and kidney functioning, and how's your heart, how's your blood pressure, how's your thyroid, how's the internal organs of your body, how you've been taking care of those, and exercise facilitates that. Right. You're an educator. I've listened and read some of the things that you've written, and Paul and Bob Esqueri and Johnny. I read that because that's what has kept me in tune. As I did my little stint at Gold's Gym and Health Tracks, because nobody was thinking like that. Right. It's for them, it's old school. How much money are we going to make? How many people are we going to sign up this month? And hey, maybe we'll get 15% to train, and the penetration is great, and all of that stuff is just wonderful stats. But the reality to me is what are you doing every day to get people involved, rather than just signing them up and hoping that somebody's going to pick up the phone and call them. Right. That's the big news for everybody. So hence my small box gym, local. I'll keep you informed of that.
Well, that would be like full circle, wouldn't it?
It would be, and that's sometimes what life does to you.
Absolutely.
It takes you full circle all the way around, and and you say to yourself, well, I've been there, I've climbed the top of the mountain, I've done this, I've done that, and it's like wonderful. You gain all this knowledge, but then you really reflect on what are you all about? How are you making a difference to the world? I like to do a lot of work now with kids, with people that necessarily can't afford a trainer, that I know want to get in shape. And look, if I see the one person every day for 5 minutes and say, what are you working on today? And listen to what they're saying and give them some advice and some encouragement. That's all it takes sometimes.
Right.
That's all it really takes. And it becomes this thing now, for me, is money really that important? Is it just all about money? So I go back to my long ago days when I had no money, and I read that book, do what you love and the money will follow.
Right.
And that's where it all ends up, So did I stay in touch with being a personal trainer? Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Did I get out there in my whole time being away from Equinox and grab people and train them? Absolutely. It's kept me connected to what I love the best. And
awesome.
and I don't know. And I guess just talking to you, talking about all of this just gets me fired up even more to go down the street and sign that lease. But I can't be too hasty. I'm still on a hiatus. I'm still relaxing. I'm still enjoying. I'm not ready to immerse myself yet.
That's great. Well, listen, I think you answered these questions already, but if you want to add, I'd like to ask. I'm asking everybody, what do you think a new personal trainer needs to know about our industry, and what do you think everybody needs to know about the job or the industry of personal training? I mean, I know you hit around about it, but if you want to just finish up with that, that'd be great.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So what do you need to know? It looks very easy from the outside looking in. When people, I've interviewed and hired a lot of people, and there's a lot of people where I just said, I don't think you're going to make it, and I'm not going to ruin your life. So go find another job, go someplace else. I'm not hiring you. People are under the perception that, being a personal trainer, you get your little online certification or whatever, and, now you're armed with this knowledge. You've never really worked out. You're going to go into a gym and you're going to be very disheartened to find out that you actually have to talk to people, engage them, build relationships and help them and be true to your word. And you got to show up. You got to show up early. You got to stay late, sometimes on the weekends. And, people need you. You create a relationship. So are you prepared to do that? And are you afraid to talk to strangers? Are you afraid to, what are your fears in life when dealing with people? So you're in the service industry. That's what it really boils down to. So that's what I would say to any new trainer coming in is, like, if you're going to be committed, you better jump in with all limbs and learn as much as you can, and don't think that you know it all, because there's a lot of people out there that are still writing the book on it, and you follow what they're reading and what they're saying, and you'll create your own path, and don't poo-poo what anybody is putting out there, as we used to do in the old days, because it's all valuable. It's all creative thought that actually everyone has a different perspective, but it's all good. It all comes together. So just in general about our industry, it's a great job. It's something that I never dreamed that I would be doing in my whole everything that I've done in my life. But when I got into it, I found my bread and butter, my happiness of coming into work every day and saying, I love being in the gym and I love helping people, and it can't be any better than this. And you have to be committed. Again, you got to be committed to that. I've seen many managers that make it a personal issue when someone is in the gym, and it's not. Mm-hmm. All it is someone that's finally got enough courage to get off the couch to say, you know what, I'm going to change my life. And once they walk in through the door and they've chosen you, at your gym, you can't disappoint them, because they've chosen you. And they don't know. They don't know if they're wearing the right clothes. They don't know if they're using a treadmill correctly or a weight. Do you put the weights back? They don't know any of this stuff. Right. And you have to take the time to school them up the right way. And it doesn't need to be there doesn't need to be anger or angst about it. Just remember that they don't know, and what they don't know, and it's up to you to give them the right information. Right. Gym etiquette, all the things that we covered off on. Just on a side note too, there was one person that I've saved all of her papers that she used to write for all of us, and it was Libby Friedman.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, and she wrote something, and she handed it out to everybody. You know, the loving care of a client. I have it in my notes somewhere, my pile of papers that I've carried through the years. But,
no kidding.
But I don't know if anybody that's listening to this, if you remember it, maybe you get with Libby, and I know she probably has it somewhere. But she wrote this thing, and I wrote many a paper on it, on how to care for your clients. You know, sending a birthday card and listening to them. And there was probably like 20 or 30 items on it that she put down, on caring for your clients. And to this day, I say that's the right way to do it.
Right.
Because you're asking someone for money, and they're going to give you money, but they have to believe in you. And the way that, one of the ways they're going to believe in you is if you genuinely care. And if you don't care, then find the job where you don't need to care.
Right.
Find that job if in fact it's out there. And that, I'll just close with that. I think every industry, I don't think there's one that you can't name, is after you're done doing business with them, they're asking for a survey. How did we do?
So true.
How did we do? Google contacted me a week ago, and they said, will you do some writing for us on reviewing businesses? And I was like, absolutely. Just places I've been to give my perspective. I was fortunate to work with Steve Hansen and learn a lot about, the service industry and making sure that someone is the whole hospitality thing.
Right, the experience, right? Yeah.
So that's every business now.
Right.
Every business. I mean, I moved here from San Antonio. They called me up, can you do a survey for us? Can you tell us how we did? And what I learned, when you're going to do that survey, make sure your mind is clear. If you had a bad day, don't do the survey because it'll twist it. But, make sure your mind is clear and you're going to give honest feedback because people's jobs depend on it. The way a company, steers itself depends on it.
Wow, that's well said.
And I remember there was a director of operations at Be Our Guest. His name was Brad Gardner. I was doing secret shopping for Be Our Guest, and he used to call me every time I had a shop. I was doing 3 a week, because you get to eat out and have drinks and everything. He would call me and say, how you feeling? And I remember saying one day, I said, man, I had a crappy day. He goes, all right, no problem, man. Listen, you're not going to do the shop tonight. And I was offended a little bit, but I called him back and I said, why can't I do the shop tonight? And he, for that reason alone, he said, because you had a terrible day, and if you write something bad or you're going to take it out on somebody, they might lose their job. And I can't have. He goes, we need honest feedback. So I've always kept that in the forefront of my mind. When you walk through the doors of your business, any business, keep that, be open to it. That person may have had a bad day. Something may have happened in the kitchen and on the gym floor. The bathrooms might have exploded. Who knows what happened?
Right.
I think we've all been victim to that, where you just say, the world is coming to an end. It's really not, because the next day everything is cleaned up and life goes on.
Right. Wow, that's excellent, Rocco. So I'm going to bug you again another time, maybe to do another interview with more stories if you want.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, okay. For sure.
Right,
but,
cool.
I just want to apologize to everybody whose name I've forgotten. It's just been so many years, but Marcella,
I'm going to interview her. She's at Equinox. It's amazing to see a few of these trainers who still come there. And when I told Marcella, when I walk into Equinox and see her there, she owns that floor.
Marcella?
I mean, she just owns that floor. I mean, obviously she does privates probably too, but I told her, I said, man, it's just so wonderful to see you on the floor, because the young trainers look at her and they're like, she's unbelievable.
I could imagine. But like I said, Johnny said it best, like years go by and everybody comes back together. And for everybody that participated and is doing so now, from way back when, just keep in mind that what we've done is steer the industry. And, I've watched all the offshoot things of, Bob Esqueri with, the Equinox Fitness Training Institute. Now you got PT on the net. You got all of these things. But in that little room on the second floor at 76th Street is the genesis of all of that. That's where we all used to sit and lay it out on the table. And, look, the ideas were great ideas. And, we just needed you need the vehicle to launch it and get it going in the right direction. So we were all fortunate. We were all very fortunate to be in that one place, that whatever powers that be put us all there together to make it happen.
Very true. All right, well, I'm going to let you go, and I'll be in touch.
All right, please do it. Thank you so much. All right, have a good one.
Take care.